Time once again for another riveting edition of the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, Soren Petro with you. We continue to break down the draft. What will make this draft class a success? That's not quite as easy to define as you might think. Which player is going to exceed their draft position? Which one's got the biggest chance to be a bust based upon their draft position? We will talk about which current players should be concerned about their future. Do they have a job here moving forward? Which one's got a better situation based upon where the draft went? The personnel on defense, since that's where they focused. Is this really, what was the problem last year? We're talking about it right now on the Red, Gold, and Bold.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
All right, gentlemen, we continue to break down the draft. Remember, if you're catching us via the podcast, you can be, by the way, I'm going to just take a moment to say, Jeff, you're on here twice. I have you in once and you're muted. You want me to switch you? I'm going to switch you. Hang on a sec, Jeff. Little technical gems. How's that, Jeff?
Still muted.
Now I'm on.
There you go.
Sorry.
I don't know.
What were you doing during that commercial?
That's right. I hit the wrong button, and all of a sudden I was like, "Oh,
yeah." I was wondering why I saw stuff in the corner of my eye while I was sending out the social media stuff and everything, and I'm like, well, I don't know what's going on there, but I gotta get this out while I'm doing it. Hey, it's a live broadcast. Are we live? Yes, we're live. Don't be asking that in the chat room. We are live here on a Friday. Remember, we do go live 9:30 on Tuesdays, 10 a on Fridays. We adjust that from time to time, but if you want to be a part of the conversation, got a number of folks in the chat room already as we continue to dive into the draft. And guys, let's start with what is going to make this draft a success. And Sam, you've now moved to the upper square.
Yeah, let's start
draft with you since Jeff didn't want the spot. He bailed from that
touchscreen computer.
Let's start with you. What's going to define success for this draft class in your mind?
So I came up with three parts to this. Okay. Number one, I think because of the trade up, that Mansour Delane needs to be a Pro Bowl caliber cornerback. Number two, I think because of the capital that they've used in it, you've got to be able to pressure the quarterback with four. And the two guys they got are defensive linemen who are geared towards pass rush more than run stop. For sure, that's the case with R. Mason Thomas. And with Peter Woods, that's the case too, because I know it sounds ridiculous that a 300-pound guy is undersized, but he's undersized for defensive tackle, at least relative to the rest of the league. He's less than average. And then number three is that next offseason, when your wide receivers are going to need help and you've got some other spots on the offense that might need some assistance, you should not be needing to make major additions to your defense a year from now based on the resources you just plugged in to your defense in this draft. And so that you can focus your finances, which you'll have more next year, on the offense. And so to me, those are the three things that you've got to accomplish via this draft.
Run it down to me again. Delane a Pro Bowler.
Yeah.
I want to track this.
Pressure the quarterback with four without having to blitz. And next year you can focus your finances on your offense.
Next year. Okay. Finances, I'd say finances and, draft.
Yeah. All your capital. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I like that. I can't argue with any of those.
Yeah. That's very involved.
Yeah. I think, in fact,
we are involved, aren't we?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. To a degree, I almost think you kind of are. I think you're kind of nice on just Pro Bowl, right? On Mansour Delane. Like I'm going to tell you,
he's got to become the best in the league.
I think All Pro. Yeah, I've heard. Danny Klinkskill comes on with me on Fridays last week. Said he's going to make 2 All Pros. I'm like, ooh, that's a little rough. I don't know that I'd go that far, but so like 1 Pro Bowl or Pro Bowl every year, Pro Bowl in rookie season.
That's actually why I use the term Pro Bowl caliber.
Okay.
Which does not mean 1 year you sneak up and get it because you're an alternate and some other guys didn't accept it. I just mean you're a Pro Bowl caliber player. Okay. And to me, that expresses consistency at the position as well.
Yeah. Okay. I can live with that. I get that one. I think that's a good way to put it. Jeff, how about you? How do you define success?
Yeah, I start with Delane as well. I didn't put a label on it as far as Pro Bowl or All Pro, but he needs to be a star. He needs to be somebody when you look at it and you say this guy is a special talent, and maybe that equates to a certain number of Pro Bowls or All Pros. But I watched Christian Gonzalez in the Super Bowl knocking down balls, headed for Jackson Smith and Jigba, making plays in the AFC Championship game. I see Devin Witherspoon doing that in Seattle. Denzel Ward is a phenomenal corner in Cleveland. He's not often mentioned with some of the great corners. He's a Pro Bowl player, but I think if Delane is that level, you've hit a home run. But what you traded to get him, the hype you put around him on draft day talking about him, he needs to be a special player. He just can't be a Jalen Watson type guy for you. Number 2, they have to get 3 productive starters out of this draft. And I say that because obviously on Tuesday I talked about I wasn't crazy about the last 2 picks, Cyrus Allen and Garrett Nussmeier. I don't think you're going to get anything out of those players. Certainly not the quarterback, but maybe Allen for maybe a couple of years. So I'm putting a lot of pressure on corner, edge, defensive tackle, nickel, Kennedy. 3 of those guys have to be productive players for you. And ideally it's the edge of the corner first and foremost. And then third, I'll throw a third one in there because Sam threw 3 in there.
Okay.
Steve Spagnuolo's got to change his attitude about playing young players. And he's got to go back to the 22 season and really just open it up, let guys get on the field. And if this was a personnel issue, then these guys got to help you right away.
I think that's an interesting one about the Spagnuolo part of the equation, because we do know that that's a lot of people's worry, right? Like, is this a Spag guy? Our Mason Thomas, he doesn't look like a Spag guy. And, I think I did not have that. I wish I'm jealous now because – I feel like there is an element of in 22, there were no defensive backs to play. They had to play all the DBs. I like to call it burning the boats. No retreat, no surrender. Put them out there, march forward. We're fighting with these. That's it. That's all you got. And, I think there is an element of that obviously here as well. So I think the DBs are going to play. But, and there's no Charles Omenihu. There's no Mike Dana now. Right, but Mike Dana remains out there. Like, are any of us going to be shocked if Mike Dana is signed to a 1-year, $2.5 million deal with a few incentives or something like that? Well, raise your hand if you will be shocked that they bring Mike Dana back.
All right. I'd be surprised, I guess. But he did start 14 games for him last year.
I'm not predicting it, but would I be shocked, surprised? No.
Can I point out one difference in this though from 22?
Yeah.
In 22, this team was in a better position to be patient.
Yep.
This year's team went 6-11 last year, and I think there's going to be more urgency to win games in September. And the importance of that is when you play young guys, it requires patience. It requires not benching them when they have a bad day, when they have a bad quarter, when they have a bad drive. Like, you've got to stick with them because you're planning on having them at the end of the season more than you are needing them in September. Well, when in 22, this team, even after they had traded Tyreek Hill, still felt like it was Super Bowl good, and they were. I mean, they won one. And that allowed them to stick through some growing pains that I don't know if they're going to be in a position to have the same sort of patience this year. I agree with Jeff that they've got to play these guys because I think it'll just be their best players. Like, I don't think this team has a lot of depth to go elsewhere with compared to some of these guys that they just picked.
I think that's my point about burning the boats, right? Like,
I just think that phrase implies to me that, you've got to, I mean, Stren, you and I have this conversation about Bill Self and his inability to stick with mistakes from young players. Delane is going to make a lot of mistakes as a rookie, and he's the best player in this class. And so some of the other guys for sure are going to make mistakes. And what I'm saying is in 22, they lived with it because they saw that this was about January and potentially February. This year is coming off of a 6-11 season in which September is going to be magnified compared to years past.
I agree. If you come out of the gate slow, we won't spend 3 months justifying why it's no big deal like we did last year, right? Like, oh, nothing to worry about, nothing to see here. It'll be a very different reaction. I do agree with you wholeheartedly on that front. It will have a different feel and a different look if they come out of the gate slow. And I'm with you. Listen, I've got Delane has to be a Pro Bowl corner, multiple Pro Bowls, because I don't think it's that hard to make the Pro Bowl. When the Super Bowl team in your conference isn't going, right? So like that's usually some good players. So you get bumped up in today's day and age. I don't think putting Pro Bowl out there is a must. It's short when you give up 3 draft picks, 2 of them in the top 100 to get this guy. This guy has to be good. He has to be really, really good. We've explained all the reasons why they did it. And, is it ideal? No, it's not ideal to give up the draft picks, but we understand why they did it. But once you did it, it doesn't, the fact that you felt like you had to have him does not minimize what you gave up. It really more so you should be looking back on how did we get in the spot where we had to have him, right? You'd rather be in a spot where we can trade back, get more picks. And instead they had to have a guy. That's a fundamental problem that they have to address. So the fact that you put yourself in this position, you gave all this to go get him. There will be a guy, whether it's Ruben Bain, who is the fans' choice, I think. I'm fine with him not taking Ruben Bain, by the way, but whether it's Ruben Bain or one of the offensive tackles, there's going to be somebody who went after him that's going to be a stud. And your job is to find those guys and to be in a position with your free agent moves to not have to go force a position. So we all acknowledge it and accept it, but I don't know that we've shined enough of a light on the fact that they did find themselves, and we know why. Nick Bolton contract, Trey Smith contract, all the things we've talked about forever. But all that did add up to this massive use of capital to get this guy. He has to be great. Period.
What about that position, Stern, would you have done differently at that position?
I don't think it's about that position. I think as we go forward, the dominoes start, it's one domino hits 2, and 2 hit 3, and 3 hit 4. Like as we move back, it goes back to the Chris Jones contract. It goes back to the Trey Smith contract, the Nick Bolton contract, stuff that, like I said, we've talked about before that pinned them into where it wasn't even an option. Like, I think they should have come to this point and had the option to say, do we want to pour a bunch of capital into keeping McDuffie, or do we want to take the 3 for 45? If you'd approached Jalen Watson mid-season when he looked like he was having a good year again and said, we're going to give you 4 for 40 and be able to bounce, hard swallow after 2 years, but easy swallow after 3, I think he'd have taken it, right? Like I think he'd have taken that contract. And then you would have been in a position to where, if you'd offered him 3 for 45, which is what he ultimately got, he absolutely would have signed. And so if you were in a position to have that contract instead of Nick Bolton's contract, you wouldn't have been in a position where you said, we have to go get corner.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I do want to clarify. Watson got 3 for 51.
3, okay,
but I know that's
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I still know your point's the same regardless of the number. I just wanted to clarify.
Let me add on real quick.
So your point is just.
Well, let me just add on real quick. And if you had found a way to not have Trey Smith or Nick Bolton, or if you didn't have Chris Jones and Trey Smith, because Hunter Norzad had played and you believed in him, and he's playing on a cheap, 5th round contract, and you could have then perhaps said, okay, we're going to sign McDuffie. We're overpaying. We don't like it. But let's give him the money. Let's be able to bail after 2 years, and we'll let Watson go. There were other avenues to get there. It's, but once you're pinned in to where they put themselves, then I think we all get why they did what they did for Delane. It doesn't mean that they got it right before that led them to the position where they felt like they had to do this. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, when you said that about like how they arrived here, I didn't have a problem with this offseason's moves. I think when you backtrack further, those are conversations we've had a lot, and I just wanted to clarify that that's what you're referring to, and not the fact that because the Trent McDuffie trade was pretty good.
Yeah, it was very good. It was very good, and I liked it. And they did a nice job of kind of digging out of the hole they made for themselves. And if they hit with the corner, then then we can be like, okay, hey, they worked it. They have confidence in their ability to assess the board, and they worked it, and they used the resources to get it. Especially if Canada comes through, I think at that point, then they really look like, okay, they can really massage the board. But you can't sit and say the reason we moved up is because it's not as easy to find corners whenever you draft them, like everyone thinks, and then turn around at Canada and be like, well, I mean, we can just draft a guy. It's easy. I mean, we can develop guys. We saw him. You gotta have both sides of that sword. I will say, Jeff, you said 3 starters. I'll say 4. I mean, I think 4 starters is what I said coming in. I think it gets real hard to say that with a 7-man draft class, but it was 9. It was 9 picks coming in, and I'm not backing off it. And that, that means you pretty much got to hit on the 3 top 40 guys, right? And then one of these other guys got to be a real diamond in the rough. But I don't think that changed. I mean, that's what they needed coming into this draft, and that is the penalty that comes with trading up is now you've got to hit like either Cyrus Allen, in all likelihood, Emmett Johnson, or Kennedy has to be a starter.
Kennedy, yeah.
Kennedy.
Kennedy.
How is it?
Kennedy. Like Canada with an E at the end instead
or Kennedy, but Kennedy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
There's lots of different ways you could get there, but
okay. That's the one that
just want to land on Kennedy.
That's the one that that's the one that gets me there. And I will say that the offense has to be top 10, and that is because they didn't do much with it.
Yeah.
And so these other moves and whatever coaching changes you're going to make, you cannot be like, well, we really just didn't address offense. That cannot be an excuse. You have the number 1 quarterback. There's no excuse, none, for this offense not humming along and being a lot better. And I really am probably giving them a lot of grace and just saying top 10. It probably should be top 5, to be honest with you. I think that needs to happen, to justify doing this. No, the offense was fine. Once we got the running back, we were all good. That needs to be a part of it. And I think they've got a decent chance to check these boxes that we're putting up there for them. All right, we want to get into which player will exceed, which player will disappoint the most based upon their draft position. We'll do it after you hear from our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Concrete season is in full swing and asphalt paving is revving up. So right now is the time to get your property on the schedule with Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Whether you need new concrete work, a parking lot repaved, crack filling, seal coating, or full asphalt installation, their experienced crews handle it all right here in Kansas City. Don't wait until the rush hits. Call today for a free bid and secure your spot before the calendar fills up. Get the process started right now at GannAsphalt.com. That's GannAsphalt.com. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lots. Italian Delight was the first restaurant to bring true New York-style pizza to Kansas City almost 50 years ago. They sell whole pies or pizza by the slice, or enjoy their classic strombolis, calzones, and sausage rolls. Sandwich lovers, check out their lineup of hot and cold subs, the combo, the meatball, or the Philly cheesesteak, just to name a few. And don't forget the pasta. Their famous lasagna and classic chicken Alfredo always hit the spot. And if you're hungry for lunch, check out their daily lunch specials, starting at under $10. Italian Delight can even cater your next work function or party. Dine in, carry out, or delivery, it's Italian Delight. Located just 3 minutes east of Kansas Speedway at 8145 State Ave in KCK. Check out the menu and order online at ItalianDelightKS.com. Kansas City's own Italian Delight. By the way, that's our buddy Renee throwing the pizza, him and his sister, family-owned Operation Italian Delight. We see that pizza in there. In fact, I think Renee's in the chat room today. So love to our friends at Italian Delight. Of course, always love to our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete as well. Let's talk a little bit about who has the best chance to exceed their draft position. Sam, where do you want to go on who you think could be the best pick out of the bunch and based upon where they were taken?
Yeah, this is interesting because I feel like you cannot possibly put their best player into this conversation, because how would Mansour Delaney possibly exceed a number 6 draft position that also required a trade up? And so I'm going to put Jaden Kennedy in this. I think that he's probably got the best potential of the late round picks to start immediately, to play immediately. And I actually think, if he's not starting at the nickel, mid-season, then it's going to be a problem, because who is going to be occupying that position? And the thing I didn't like hearing about Mansour Delane was the fact that he could play the nickel. You drafted him at 6 overall. He needs to play the outside, and you need to find a solution to someone who's playing the nickel and not moving inside and outside. And I think that Kennedy's got the best shot to get some playing time early.
All right. Jeff, where do you go? You got the best chance.
I went with Kennedy as well, just because the bar is so low at that position that I think if he's able to get on the field early and be halfway decent, he's going to be an upgrade of what they've had at that spot over the last couple of years. And I'm glad that they have finally admitted that Shamari Connor was a disaster there. And with Sam, I agree. Like, they don't need to be shuffling people around. You need to have, most teams have a guy who plays in the slot, who you know is a true slot corner. Go with that person. And so, to me, my hopes are highest for him. He's got the skill set, he's got the reps, he's got the experience, and he's got the body type you'd like to see down in there. Now, I was tempted to go Emmett Johnson just because I like his downhill running style behind that interior offensive line, but I think Kennedy's going to have a greater chance to play more and be more impactful.
I was going to ask before I laid mine in, like who was runner up? Who did Kennedy beat out? I'll ask you that in a second, Sam, but I want to hit on something. Do you consider him a downhill runner? Yeah, because you're not the first person I've heard say that.
Yeah.
Does he look like a, or maybe
not a fast guy? He's not a bounce guy. He's not somebody like Kenneth Walker who's got that burst, get to the corner. So he's going to have to. If he's going to run somewhere, it's going to be inside the tackles.
He doesn't. Yeah. What's a bizarre combination that he has is he did break a lot of tackles in college, but I don't consider him a push the pile type of runner, which that's what I said. It's a bizarre combination. Usually guys who break tackles are pushing the pile, but a lot of times his missed tackles forced are making guys just not touch him. Like he's a cut guy. Yes. That's how he makes guys miss.
That's why I asked. I think it's a little bit. I got into this battle with Curtis on the radio show because he called him a downhill runner as well, and I was like, okay. And he and I, I think a lot of sports talk is agreeing about 90% and then arguing about the last 10%. And so I think we all agree that there's talent there, right? But like, how do you define that talent is a part of the equation. And when I say, because I think of a downhill runner as like Derrick Henry is a downhill runner, Bo Jackson, Herschel Walker, bigger backs that are thundering at you. Not that they don't have some elusiveness, like Bo could stick a leg in the ground and cut and go. But I think of a downhill runner kind of like Sam does, that like at the end of it, 3 guys are going the direction the running back wants to go as they finally wrestle him down to the ground. And he is, to your point, does he have top end speed? Is he going to finish the run like Chris Johnson? No, he doesn't have that kind of top end speed, but he is more of a scat back. I mean, he runs between the tackles, but like at least, again, and I have not watched all the tape. I've just watched the highlight videos that are available to everybody else. And it's cut off the cut. He's more Darren Sproles between the tackles. What I remember at K-State, because he never really got the opportunity to just be a running back. And I was always curious why. I know he was small, but why, people didn't look at the film and say, hey, you can't get down so low that they can't find you and cut back. I mean, I'm sure the Chiefs are going to want to put 10 pounds on Johnson right away and get him bigger and stronger. But I kind of see the same kind of runner in Johnson. And that's why Johnson is my guy. And I wonder if there's an element of, because the running backs succeed in later rounds, that he's carrying that penalty. Because like, if I were to tell you somebody after the first 3 picks is going to be a Pro Bowler, is going to be a star, who would you pick? Not just, because there's a little bit of safety net. I'm thinking if I said, one guy's going to be a star, Who would it be?
Out of everybody in this draft?
No, out of everybody after the top.
Oh, okay. Top 3. Oh,
yeah, I mean, I guess he probably has the best chance of being that. You think they're gonna ask him to put on 15 pounds?
Not 15. I said 10. Yeah, I think first of all, to block, I think, everyone has it in their head. I don't know if it's because he wore number 1, but that Jerick McKinnon was like 185 pounds, but was still this great pass blocker. Jerick McKinnon is listed at, I think, 214 pounds by Pro Football Reference, which oftentimes is a weight that they're given early in their career and just lives on because they don't update it. But I know you're checking me right now, Sam. So tell me when you get.
Well, I'm checking Johnson's. Johnson's at 5'11",
215,
like 220 something. I think.
I thought he was 5'10" and a half. One measure was 5'10" and a half. One was 5'10" and a quarter. 201 was what I thought he was.
Oh, he's 200. Okay.
Yeah. So, I think just for pass protection to have a little anchor there.
How tall was Jerick though? He's shorter than that for sure.
Was it?
Would you compare? Yeah, he's just 5'9", 209.
Would you compare him to Blake Corum?
Corum was just what, 5'8"?
No, I mean as a running style.
Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty good. I think that's a good comparison. I mean, look,
Corum's like a downhill. When I say down, like power back. Downhill means running between the tackles to me. A guy who makes his living running between the tackles.
I think it's about the definition of downhill. I just it brings a different connotation.
I mean, the Chiefs did have a really good running back, and this would be the unbelievable extreme. And so this isn't a prediction, but I just pointed out that they did have a running back who did not have top end speed, who was also not a guy who moved the pile, who was as successful as any running back they had, which was Priest Holmes. And like, you can have success just being able to cut between just making guys miss in traffic.
I do agree that he had those those traits, but my recollection is okay. I thought he had a better 40 time. Priest Holmes 40-yard dash, according to AI, 4.73 to 4.75.
I don't think it was quite that bad, but he did not have a great 40.
I'm not finding anyone that has combine on him or anything here on a quick search, but
you go to the combine?
Maybe not. Here I'm seeing another one.
Here's a Texas
combine results 4.73.
Wow.
So that's a fantastic point, Sam. I would have never, ever told you that he, not 4.3. Yes, I would agree. But he didn't get caught from behind much. But, yeah.
And
Priest Holmes combine.
I said it once, but I want to say it again. I'm not making that comparison. You can't have success in the NFL as a running back without running 4.3s and 4.4s.
His 40 was 4.73. His vertical was only 33 inches. His broad jump was under 10 feet. 120.
He was basically the exact opposite runner of Isaiah Pacheco. Isaiah Pacheco was this guy who envisioned himself as being physical, who was fast, had breakaway speed, but just could not hit the hole.
He was just under 5'9", Priest Holmes, height-wise, 213 pounds. So, yeah. He did have almost 31-inch arms, though, at that height. I'm glad you brought that up, Sam. That's an education for me because, man, I would have told you he was. I might even have said in the upper 4.4s because he definitely played faster than 4.73.
That's how quick he cut. Like it didn't take him time to find the hole.
Great vision, great balance, great strength. I mean, I will tell you that many aspiring bodybuilder is one of the traps of Priest Holmes. I remember talking to him he talked about he got up into the 220s at Texas. He said, we all got into the weightlifting and you had to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I found out that was just too big. I mean, he was a guy that could control his body and his weight. And he found his spot like the 210-ish or 215-ish range. But he said he was in the 220s at Texas at one point when they were all into the weightlifting and everything, which I can only imagine how, burly he looked walking around at under 5'9" in the 220s. At Texas. All right. How about let's talk about where the biggest chance for a bust is. Sam?
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to be terribly surprised by this. And I'm not predicting he will be a bust, but I think the biggest chance at a bust is Woods. I mean, he was a bust last year as his last year of college. He had 14 pressures a year ago, and so like I said, I'm not predicting this guy's going to be a bust. I have predicted he's not going to be quite the impact that some others are projecting for him, but I think he's got the biggest chance to be one.
Okay, Jeff.
I want R. Mason Thomas, and not because of the player, but just because of the history. It's a lot to ask or to imagine how Steve Spagnuolo is going to embrace this kind of player, and I think he could be a really good player as a pass rusher. But as you mentioned, Soren, he's probably going to be more of a situational guy because he's not the biggest dude in the world. And I just think about every player they've had who was his size, and none of them have made an impact. And so I do think he could be useful. I'm curious to see. I bring this up too because going back to our prior conversation about just players who could ascend or what makes his class great. I mean, I think about Spagnuolo gets a lot of cover from that 22 draft, but Felix Anudike-Uzomah, Jaden Hicks, Jeffrey Bassa, the last three most highly drafted, hyped players coming in have not had any kind of real success. And so I just think I want to see this happen before I start to believe it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think you could take any one of the top 3 picks. I think are easy, selections there, but just because the draft capital that they put into Mansour Delane, I do think that he could be a good corner and a solid, number 2 corner. That's a bust based upon where they put it. So I do think how high and how much they put into him. He was in consideration for me. Peter Woods, Sam nailed it. Yes, they're drafting him. They're not drafting him based upon a sophomore tape, but they are drafting him, based upon he's going to play better because we're going to use him different. Right. Yeah. But he at least was used differently as a sophomore. That's why I didn't go for him. I think you can look at his freshman and sophomore tape and say, okay, how did they use him? We can put him there. I also do think they're going to make him the fullback in short yardage, and that's going to give people a lot of glee about what he is. And so some of it, like from a fan's bus perspective, I think
as a rookie, man, that would be a mistake as a rookie. that has Sky Moore. Let's give this guy too much on his plate written all over.
I mean, are you
also
just
Tonga did it for New England, so like why him over Tonga for example?
So well, I mean, I honestly think you may see a backfield that has both of them in there.
I just think that'd be a gigantic mistake if you're taking away time from this guy learning Spags.
I think there would be like 2 plays. I think it'd be fun stuff after practice. They've wedged it in. Am I predicting it? Am I guaranteeing it? No, but I can see it. They've taken 2 defensive linemen that have done it. They've signed.
You're not predicting it? I thought you said I think.
Listen, if you ask me to say at some point in his career, will he line up on the offensive side of the ball? Yes, I will make that wager. Do you want the other side?
That's why I said as a rookie was how I started by
I think it's possible, but no, I wouldn't make the bet. Give me 2-1 and I'll say yes.
I just think it would be a mistake was what I said.
So no on the 2-1.
I don't think he's going to play offense as a rookie. No.
Okay. I do think there's a chance. And I think he definitely will at some point in his time there, but I don't see a fullback on the roster, and I don't see the solution in short yardage. So I think this has got to be in the back of somebody's head with one of those 2 guys. But anyway, so I think Woods is a candidate. R. Mason Thomas is a candidate. The guy out of the second half, I think Emmett Johnson is getting a lot of hype. I was leaving Family Leisure. I did my show at Family Leisure yesterday. Love for great KC company. And I had a listener that was there, and we were walking out. He's like, love Emmett Johnson. Love it. He's going to be great. I'm a Nebraska guy. He's going to be great. I've had a number of people tell me that. I think there actually is. He's the one guy out of that day 2 and day 3 that I think could do it. But I'm with Jeff. I think it's R. Mason Thomas. I like the player on film. If he'd gone to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'd be like, oh, this sucks. Because now they got the guy opposite TJ Watt. He's going to get single coverage. He's a madman. But I'm like, okay, do they tell him to put his hand on the ground and set the edge? Do they? I think that has the biggest chance to be a bust because I think we've got plenty of evidence that they've taken those guys that hadn't worked, and Steve Spagnuolo doesn't necessarily look at like their ideal guy. So yeah, I think that's a possibility. All right, we'll talk about which one of the veterans need to be concerned about their jobs. Who got a kiss on their chances of making the roster after you hear from our friends at Italian Delight. Italian Delight was the first restaurant to bring true New York-style pizza to Kansas City almost 50 years ago. They sell whole pies or pizza by the slice, or enjoy their classic strombolis, calzones, and sausage rolls. Sandwich lovers, check out their lineup of hot and cold subs, the combo, the meatball, or the Philly cheesesteak, just to name a few. And don't forget the pasta. Their famous lasagna and classic chicken Alfredo always hit the spot. And if you're hungry for lunch, check out their daily lunch specials, starting at under $10. Italian Delight can even cater your next work function or party. Dine in, carry out, or delivery, it's Italian Delight. Located just 3 minutes east of Kansas Speedway at 8145 State Ave in KCK. Check out the menu and order online at ItalianDelightKS.com. Kansas City's own Italian Delight. Gann Asphalt and Concrete is looking to grow their team. If you have heavy construction foreman experience with heavy equipment, asphalt or concrete labor, or just want to learn a new trade, contact Gann Asphalt and Concrete to join their team today. Top of the market pay, company provided insurance, and paid time off and holiday pay are just a few of the great reasons to join Gann's expanding team. Learn more about this great opportunity with Gann at GannAsphalt.com/careers. That's GannAsphalt.com/careers. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lots. Who's concerned about their gig now, Sam? The draft has happened. Most of the bulk, the heavy lifting, and maybe all of, based upon the Chiefs cap situation. A free agency is done. So right now, who's like, I'm going to have a hard time making this team?
You know what was actually surprising to me about this exercise was the lack of names I think you can come up with, which speaks to the fact that this draft filled gaps in the roster more than it did like improving on guys who are already projected to start.
Right.
And so, I mean, look, Brashard Smith, I think is one. Like, what is Brashard Smith's role? I think the other guys are like, just maybe playing time situations with. Kevin Knowles, I think, was a guy who maybe could play the slot. Christian Fulton, is he now a backup? Maybe Jaden Hicks, because I think Kennedy can also play safety. And then Nika Remigio, if Cyrus Allen is moved to a returner, or because Brashard Smith doesn't get as many carries, if he's moved to a returner, I think may have a little bit tougher time too.
Okay. All right. The phone book has now been taken, Jeff. Feel free to.
That's right. What's left?
All right, so first we started out with there's not really many guys. Now,
well, I really, to be honest, like
18.
Vahe Gregorian and I, the other columnists at the Star, always joke that when you actually have nothing to say, you wind up writing a lot more. And so this was that situation. My real answer is really only like Brashard Smith is, I think, the only obvious guy on the list.
Okay. I think there's some other names, and I know why you'll shoot a couple of them down, but I'll mention a couple others if Jeff doesn't. Jeff, I
had Brashard Smith with number one. I don't think he's an Eric Bieniemy type back. I don't know. I don't see how he fits into Eric Bieniemy's vision of what a runner should be in his offense, and the drafting of Emmett Johnson just seals the deal with that. I just don't. I wasn't crazy about his fit before. And I'm even less crazy about it now. So I think he's really buried on the depth chart behind the three guys ahead of him. But I think Jaden Hicks is in trouble. I feel like Jamari Conner getting bumped out of nickel, he's going to move back to safety. I think he's probably got a better chance of winning the job there. And I still don't know what happened to Jaden Hicks last year. He got voted off the island and you couldn't find him after that. And so to me, it's collateral damage, but the drafting of Canada pushes the safety position into the hands of Jamari Conner and Alohi Gilman. And how does Jaden Hicks get out of the doghouse now?
Yeah.
The Bieniemy point about Brashard Smith, I think, is a great one. Add that to my argument.
That's right. See, you spun your bullets on the first question, and you had all these points about just the draft class.
I agree with every assessment that was made there. I think all of them fit. I do think what's interesting is like there's no defensive lineman that's under fire, to your point, Sam, about like the gaps. Like, they're drafting a couple of defensive linemen high and nobody has to worry about anything. Part of that's like,
lost three.
Yeah, Felix Anudike-Uzomah has still got an upward climb. I think Ashton Gelati, I don't think he's out, right, because of the rotation. And I don't know that they ever looked at like he's an every down guy. I think they're trying to put together a full defensive end on the right side opposite Karlaftis by having a couple of guys. We've got to run down Ashton Gelati, pass down is going to be R. Mason Thomas. So I don't think he really loses out. I would add in Kyer Elam. Now, I know, like I said, I know what you'll say. Like, well, I didn't have him really playing that much anyway. But I think there was
his chances got harder though.
I think there's I always thought there was, he's a name that you bring in and he could be cut in camp. And I think people would be surprised to hear that, but I think it was a possibility before they made these picks. And now that they got two corners, had the draft not fallen the way they wanted, if they had some other running back, they take in the fourth and they don't get around a corner until the seventh round, I think you'd have a better chance of making the team. But I think Christian Fulton is a good point on it. I think all the corners serve notice, and exactly. You're going to see Jamari Connor, I think, play safety exclusively. And so now you've got a veteran safety. You have two veteran safeties, and one who's been in the organization for a while. So I think that is a real spot. And I think down at the bottom, I think Tyquan Thornton's going to make it. But like Nico Remigio, to your point, he's out. But I think just about every wideout. I think Cyrus Allen, they speak so glowingly about him. I think he's going to make it. But I do think Jalen Royals, Brownlee, and all the wide receivers. I mean, I think it looks pretty clear that Cyrus Allen will be the fourth wideout. He'll get that kiss if he hasn't failed yet, like Jalen Royals got last year. And so I think all the wideouts, any wideout is in trouble because I think Cyrus Allen's going to make it. I think they're going to keep Rice, Worthy, and Thornton for sure.
Royals needs to be on your list for sure if you think Allen's going to be the fourth guy.
How many wideouts would you keep, Sam? Two?
No, I'm saying like Royals needs to be high on your list if you think Allen's going to supplant his spot.
I do, but I think he'll make it as the fifth, and I think Nico Remigio's out.
But that's fewer snaps, is my point.
Yeah. All right, which player should be encouraged about what they saw in the draft, Sam?
The entire linebacker room. I mean, you've got guys like Cooper McDonald, Jeffrey Bossa, and Jack Cochran are now getting the chance to start, compete for a starting job in training camp because it's not at all evident who's going to be the third linebacker opposite Nick Bolton and Drew Tranquil. I've got some others, but in the interest of saving some names, I'll kick it to you guys.
Hey, we'll double back for a second round. Jeff, what about you?
I went Noah Gray here. It's because Travis Kelce is coming to the end of his run, and they clearly feel like Noah Gray is a comfortable plan B. And this would be a good opportunity for them to actually take it and tie it in to develop. I know that Jared Wiley's still around, but I just don't know once Travis Kelce's done playing, assuming this is his last season, if what they have there is enough. But Noah Gray's going to be in a pretty good spot.
All right. How about Sam? Second, or I'll take Jared Wiley was the guy that I thought. I think Jared Wiley, if they drafted any tight end, we haven't seen anything out of Jared Wiley. Literally nothing. He got a couple of balls in shorts his rookie year when coming across the middle. It's like, oh, maybe this is the guy that's going to, catch the high throws at the back of the end zone. Nothing. We haven't seen anything. He can't stay healthy. The fact that they did not go get a tight end. Now they did take the Rockers kid from Wyoming, and they've got the Clemson kid from last year that'll be in the mix as well. He's still on the roster. I think his spot has to be hotly contested. He has to be fighting for a spot on the roster. They didn't draft anybody, which would have been a sure sign that they were going to plug him out. But I think there has to be competition for Jared Wiley. What's your second round, Sam? What are some of where else do you want to put on?
Yeah, Gray was on my list, but I think the top of the wide receiver room, their snaps aren't threatened in a way that I thought that they would be. So that's Rashee Rice, and more to the point, because Rashee Rice was always going to play a lot. But Xavier Worthy, I thought that, there was going to be some competition for Xavier Worthy coming out of this draft to where, he might slide into a third role, even though I still think he'd more likely would play on the outside because of his speed. But really those two guys, I think, they're now clearly 1 and 2 on this roster.
The Jeff, you got anyone else you want to add to the mix?
Oh, I was going to say Jalen Moore, Estepole, guys like that. We talked about the idea of a tackle coming in here and competing with those players. And so right now they must feel confident in what they have there.
Yeah, I think, if I'm the agent for Jalen Moore, I'm calling so do we want to talk contract extension here or what are we thinking? We're on the last year of the deal. They pretty much just said we're good at right tackle. Because there's no competition there, none. Unless Like, do we believe Esapole is a starting tackle in the NFL?
I think he's better than the Wanye Morris swing tackle spot. But ideally, he's your swing tackle backup.
Yeah, because I would have said I think Wanye Morris should be gone, and I would have put him on the list above. But nothing. It was nothing about the draft that caused us to think that. It's what Esapole did at the end of last year. But
are we sure Wanye Morris and Derek Notting aren't the same person? Is it?
I'm not.
Soren's mind.
I'm not. If somebody's got video of them switching the jersey on that individual from one to the other, I am not. I am not convinced of it. All right, and just wrap with this real quick. Personnel on defense last year, and that's what they focused on. Was that the problem, or are we just hey, there were losses and had to be replaced? Jeff, what do you think? You're the defensive guru.
Well,
here.
I was the one calling them elite the last couple of years. So, look, I don't think it was all personnel, and I think it's a little bit of a risk to think that way. I think schematically, there were some things that got figured out in Steve Spagnuolo's defense that we saw last year against certain teams. I specifically remember against Dallas, is feeling like they cannot get a blitz to get home against Dak Prescott, and Brian Schottenheimer had all kinds of ways to deal with it. I think Spagnuolo's blitz packages have become a lot easier to figure out. And now that may help with new talent, but I think that they've taken the approach of, and I think it's pretty clear, they want guys who can win individually now. And they're trying to get more guys on the field who are like that. It just can't be Nick Bolton's, George Karlaftis type players who are good, not phenomenal athletes. They got to have some guys who are just some ballers now.
Sam?
Yeah, I don't view what they did in the initial 40 picks as a slight on their personnel last year. I view it as a response to the personnel they lost that's out of the building. I mean, they lost both starting cornerbacks. They lost a starting linebacker. They lost a starting safety. And believe it or not, Mike Dana started 14 games last year, so they lost a starting edge as well. I mean, they lost 5 starters on an 11-man unit. And then their backup edge was Charles Omenihu, who they lost as well. That's $254 million those guys signed for elsewhere. And so
Dana hasn't signed yet.
Yeah, and Dana hasn't signed it. But I mean, what's he? So 255 maybe if he's
coming back to Kansas City.
I don't think he's going to really up the number. But yeah, I mean, this is about what they lost out the building. And I think when you put it in that perspective, you understand why they went defense, which I am going to point this out. There's mixed messaging publicly inside the building about whether or not this was a plan or this was just the way the board fell. On opening night, I asked Andy Reid about picking defense. And he said, we felt we had, as much as I love the offense, defense is an important side of the ball too. And we knew we had to improve there. And I said, you felt that way going into the draft? And he said, yeah, we felt that way going in. Brett Veach alluded to that same thing. Ryan Nutt on Monday said just the way the board fell. And so, I believe that this organization went in saying defense has got to be improved. Look at everything we lost. $254 million walked out the building in March. That's where you've got to focus your attention. But there's just been inconsistency in the way that's been relayed publicly.
Yeah, I don't think it was their biggest problem. Personnel-wise, because like you said, there were some talented guys that left. But I think where they were sitting with what they had, it was a problem. Which is saying the same thing. But when you look at what's left, and they got an issue. They needed to get some people out there. But I would actually, I understand. I'm just all of it on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, all of it up high, and the fact that offense. And I don't have the names that I would put in there. So I do think there is an element of they wanted to address defense. Maybe not, what was it, 4 for 4, the first 4? Maybe not 4 for 4, but 4 out of 5, something along those lines. But man, that's great. But I come back to they were the number 6 points allowed last year and number 10 yardage allowed. And they went 6-11. In 2017, they were number 31 or 32 in both. And they were an offsides penalty away from going to the Super Bowl. So that's great.
18.
Yes, and 18. Yes,
they were 24th in points, 31st in yards, but 1-1 in offense.
And they were an offsides by D4 and away from going to the Super Bowl. So, like, I don't believe defense wins championships. And so this is like, okay, you're going to hold the defense up. But it just, to me, when I look at that, it just shines the light back on, okay, I guess it was all Matt Nagy. I guess that Matt Nagy and a running back is all we needed to change that mindset and get us a running back. That's just keeps coming back.
I mean, you went to commercial right after your what would make this draft a success. I really agreed with your third one. Like, the offense better be successful then.
Yeah.
That helps makes this draft a success because of what you didn't do in the draft.
Yeah, it has to happen. There's no way around it. Listen, you got to support our great sponsors. Gann Asphalt and Concrete has been solving parking lot problems in Kansas City for over 30 years. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. The schedule is filling up fast. If you own or manage a property, you need any kind of work done to your parking lot, call 816-484-3338 or find them online at GannAsphalt.com. If you want some lunch today, they got lunch special starting at under $10 at Italian Delight, just a few miles east on State Ave, a few miles east of the Speedway on State Ave. Get over there. The first folks to bring true New York-style pizza to Kansas City almost 50 years ago. Strombolis, calzones, sausage rolls. Sandwich lovers, check out their hot and cold subs. Also some great salads, I will tell you, as well. Wonderful Italian salads. It is at Italian Delight, 8145 State Ave. Find them online at ItalianDelightKS.com. For Jeff Chadiha, for Sam McDowell, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the